So one day I ordered a human-sized hamster ball to run in the creek with. I took it outside, unboxed it, and unfolded it. I then plugged the air pump in and turned it on. And while it was filling up, I pulled all the folds out to make sure it filled up all the way. It was done, and I rolled it out to the grass and unzipped it, and all the air came out.
Air pump.
Yeah, I felt pretty dumb, but then I took it to my brother's truck to take to the creek. We got there, and I drank the Bang to have energy like a hamster. I got in the ball, and my brother started filling it up. It was pretty neat from the inside, and I liked the air. And then it was done, and I ran towards the creek.
Follow you.
I got in the water.
Whoa!
Like for part two. Part two of putting a hamster ball in the creek. Don't try this at home or anywhere. So I walked in, and it was pretty strong and started to carry me away. It was pretty neat in there, but when I tried to stand up and run, I just fell. So I laid down, and then I got back up and tried again. But yeah, it never worked. So I just chilled and let the current take me, and then we came to this bridge thing, and my brother and my dad stopped me. But I couldn't quite run up to land, and it was kind of a problem. And then some other people helped push, and I made it up and ran off. And then my brother unzipped me.
Good job, Jack. Whoa, my ears popped.
So one day after filling a pool up with like 1 million Orbeez, people kept telling me to add more, so I'm adding double. Here are all the Orbeez sitting in the water, and then the next day it looked like this. It was crazy. I fell in it, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. It was like just a really weird pool. Here I am buried in it, then jumping in it, then falling in it, then doing a flip into it, dropping this rubber band ball. Here it is again, and then moving a bunch of the Orbeez into this hamster ball to try it in that. And the problem was it was just too heavy and really hard to move. So the other day I made this giant rubber band trampoline, and people wanted me to make it even bigger and add a lot more bands. So I spent another hour or so adding even more bands until it looked like it was about to bend in. It could support my weight, but I wanted to test its bounciness, first with this can that eventually exploded, and next with this basketball that didn't bounce super high, so I got out this watermelon, and it just went right through it. So I got out this tire that completely broke the entire trampoline and bent the metal, clear like in half almost, as you can see right here. So I just threw it in the pool. So it's now the 1-year anniversary of me starting the giant rubber band ball from an exploding watermelon. And ever since then, you guys have kept wanting me to add bands, so I have, all the way to now, which is part 52. I also bought a new scale to weigh the ball and a watermelon to crush at the end of this video with the rubber band ball. The ball currently weighs around 300 pounds, and this is like 25 pounds more of rubber bands we're adding. And the camera did keep cutting out at times due to the heat, but we kept on placing bands until the entire pile was gone. And we tried to weigh it, and we couldn't quite tell, but we think it was like 320, and we tried to pick it up, but we couldn't, so we had to roll it onto the watermelon and completely crushed it. But it was pretty good. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I ordered my own bubble solution to make bubbles and test if that TikTok I saw where the bubbles freeze in the freezing cold really worked. I made the bubbles as big as possible, and I tracked the first one outside, and it went off for a little bit, and then we lost it. So then I just caught this next one and let it freeze on the stick. And it did, and then fell off. It was pretty cool. And so I blew another one and caught it, and then it popped. So I blew another one, caught that one, and then time-lapsed it to freezing. Look at it. And then it fell off. Here's it in the slow-mo. And then I did that hot water thing just for fun. So one day someone commented on my video with a pool of millions of Orbeez that I should fill this car up with Orbeez. So that's what I'm going to do. So with the help of my friend Brennan, we transferred a bunch of the Orbeez into this car. I got in, and this is what it looked like. It was really cool. The Orbeez felt like a seat cushion. Look at them flying when I was driving. It was crazy. My legs were completely underwater in Orbeez, and they were just flying everywhere. I kept on driving all around, and then I decided to open up one of the doors to see what it looked like, and it was really cool looking. And then it slammed on me, and they flew at me. I let some out here, and then ran them over, and then drove off. So one day I filled this pull up with Orbeez in my last video, and then people wanted me to add more. And so I did. I bought like a few million more, added a bunch more water, then came back the next day, and it looked like this. And the Orbeez were a lot less watered down this time. It was just solid Orbeez for days. And when I would fall in it, I basically just got stuck, and then I tried to swim like this. Then threw some Orbeez at the camera, and tried to get on this floaty, and then skateboarded this little rubber band ball into the pool. Then I tossed it way up in the air to see what the splash would look like, and here's the slow-mo. Yeah, pretty cool. Like if I should fill this car with Orbeez. So it's rubber band ball part 72, and the ball's a little messed up from a video that's not out yet, but it still weighs 775 pounds, so we're going to keep on adding bands. And this time I got these special blue bands. And we began fixing up the ball and making it look cooler with these blue bands. And we kept on rotating it, that way the bands would be spread more evenly, and it would be easier to place the bands. And after a very long time, we were done. I about crashed into the wall, then jumped on it, and dropped my phone. And this ball is completely insane. Here's next to the little ball next to me, and then I struggled to put it on the scale. But got it and weighed it at over 800 pounds. Like if I should keep on going. So one day someone commented telling me to fill this dome thing up with water, so I was going to do it. My plan was to fill this section up first and then get in the other section, zip it up, and let it fill all the way until I was releasing it. But it started to leak through, which was running my plan. So I had to release early and let all the water out, and this is what it looked like. All the water did kind of rush in, and it made this cool little pool in the dome. It wasn't as much water as I wanted, but I still made the most of it and then left. Let me know what else I should do. So one day I decided to take this hamster ball across the country into the ocean, but first in this pool, and then around the warehouse and out to the road, where I took off and made it to a trail. I kept going, found this hill, traveled up it, and made it to a golf course. Then I left the golf course and ran off to the ocean. And for some reason I thought I'd make it out to sea, but the waves just kept pushing me back and knocking me down. Look at that fall. And this wave really got me right here. And it pushed me all the way back to shore. So one day, my friend and I went out to this giant snow pile in the middle of a parking lot to build a giant igloo. We got to digging for a long time. He would dig out the hole and I would scrape it out with a big shovel like this. We repeated this process for quite some time until eventually it looked like this. We were starting to make our way in, and it was starting to look like an igloo. And our next goal was trying to make it taller so we could easily dig. And after a lot more time, we got it looking like this, but we still had more to go. It had been over an hour, and we were just throwing snow everywhere. Then we saw this truck drifting in the parking lot, and here's our progress so far. We accidentally put a hole in the roof. Here it is. But it's a pretty big igloo that you can even stand up in. But the sun was coming down, so we had to leave, like if we should keep going. So everyone wanted us to make the snow pile in the parking lot that we made into an igloo even bigger. So we went back the next day with our shovels to do just that, digging out the hole and scraping all the snow out. And while we were digging, we found whatever this is. And keep in mind, I do not recommend you try this at home or anywhere. I'm a trained pro, yo. Anyway, we kept on digging more and more snow out, which was taking a very, very long time. But it was kind of satisfying. And after quite some time, here was our progress. We still had a lot of snow to clear out, and we needed to make it more even. We shoveled out all that snow. And then my friend made a seat, and it was pretty cool. I sat on it. The igloo was starting to come together. We shoveled out some more snow until it was completely finished. And here's the inside. I laid down, poked the ceiling, and then started punching the roof in to destroy it. And then I completely destroyed the whole fort so no one would get hurt in it. And then did a front flip. And here's the aftermath. So one day I decided to fill a giant hamster ball up with water and get in it. I moved it to level ground and then put the hose in to let it fill up. Then I put some wood down so it wouldn't roll and let it fill. And here's the checkpoint. It's pretty cool looking, and I hit it on the side and then added some more air. And after that, I let it fill up to this point. And I'm going to stop it when it gets to the zipper. And it got there, so I stopped it. Then I put some goggles on and unzipped it, but it broke. But I got in anyway. I went in and swam to the side. And I looked like a fish. And then I struggled to get out. Then I threw the snorkel and went back under with just the goggles. And it was pretty cool. I swam around, did a circle, and then did another circle, and then struggled again to come up. And it was kind of like a water balloon, so I jumped on it, rocked on it, flipped on it, and then swam on it. Let me know any other ideas you have for me to try. One day I decided to hang a giant hamster ball from the ceiling of the warehouse and make it a swing with me in it, and also make an actual swing. But first I wanted to play with the ball. I shot a hoop, then I bounced on it like this, and then ran and jumped and almost fell. Then did a flip and another flip. And remember, don't try anything you see in this video at home. But first I wanted to make the swing. I tied it to the ceiling and it worked pretty well. We had a decent swing. And next was the hamster ball that I also tied to the ceiling and then hung on to make sure it would hold my weight. I got in, let myself get aired up, and when we removed the beanbag, I was hitting the floor. So I had to tie the hamster ball up even higher and then get in again. And this time we removed the table and it worked. I was floating. So I got a push and I was swinging in the hamster ball. It was amazing. I couldn't believe it even worked. I spun around for quite a while, then got a bigger push and did this, and then decided to flip over and do this. So yeah, it was a pretty neat experience, and when I got out, I almost got stuck and then fell. So one day I ordered this new hamster ball that I thought would be better to run on water with than my old hamster ball, but it was kind of too short, but I dealt with it and made my way down to the lake to test it out. I got exhausted in the way, but I eventually made it there, and I normally put my hamster balls in creeks where there's a current, and I didn't realize you needed a current or else you just stay in the same spot, so I couldn't make it to the dock. But it was still pretty cool inside, and I tried to spin as much as possible to get some more movement, but after a long while of spinning and doing a bunch of flips, I was making no progress. So I just parked it into shore, got out, and then started skipping rocks sad. Let me know what else you should do. So one day someone commented telling me to take my giant 580-pound rubber band ball back to the pawn shop like old days, but it's too big, so I'm going to take all this random stuff in this little rubber band ball bag.
What happened to it? Did you put it in water?
And I told him it was a different ball, then showed him a picture of the big one.
Gosh, how big is that now?
I said 580, and then he said I should just put it on eBay. And then I moved on and asked him what he'd give me for this thing.
About $50 in rubber bands, $30.
And I couldn't sell it for that, so I had to move on to this ball.
Super high. Wow, yeah, that's cool. Did you get this at like Chuck E. Cheese?
And then I told him the price.
$16. I paid $8 for it, so I wanted to double my money.
Oh,
Yeah, we didn't end up making a deal on the ball either, so I moved on to this tiny rubber band gun. And I threw him a high ball number.
$200.
He gave me a weird look, so then I just moved on to the last item.
Magic, basically.
I said it was super rare water repellent spray, and I wanted a lot of money for it, but he didn't budge, so then he tried to sell me some stuff, including these cool shades. So one day I decided to fill my giant hamster ball up with ball pit balls, and I've done this before, but this time I'm going to do it with a lot more balls. I took all the balls from this dome, got in the ball, and here it was, all filled up. It was crazy. I rolled around in it, then rolled it outside, fell down, and here was the view. Then my friend Brendan tried to throw stuff at me and roll me over. Then I decided to test if I could ride this electric scooter in, and I got in with it, but I couldn't make enough momentum for the scooter to go. So I just got in with this hoverboard instead, rolled around, did a lot of spinning stuff, and then I fell again, and went outside. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented on my video with this giant dome thing and told me to put ball pit balls in it, so I put the whole ball pit in it. And it took a pretty long time having to air it up and move all the balls in, and then I had to move them from this thing to this thing until eventually they were all in the one big circle. And it looked really cool. I fell in it, then looked around, and then ran around, and then fell again, threw some balls at the camera, tried to run, and it wasn't that deep because it was so big, but let me know what else I should do with this thing. So I'm now at rubber band ball part 63, and we built this Lego tower to knock it over with the rubber band ball. He completely knocked it over, and then I weighed the ball in at 555 pounds, and then we got busy placing more bands to make it even heavier. I had a whole box dumped out, and my friend Brendan helped me place all these bands. And to make it go faster, we tried to do 2 and 3 bands at a time. And these are like the max custom length bands I can find, so I don't know what I'm gonna do after this, but we were done. And the ball is now at an unreal level of massiveness. It about crushed this fort, then almost hit Brendan, and we weighed it in at 580 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on going. So I'm now at a rubber band ball part 61, and the ball is over 500 pounds, but I guess everyone wants me to keep on going. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. My friend Brendan and I, we placed bands for a while, then left and came back the next day to place again, and this happened. A band broke and made him launch backwards. So I had to help him back up, and then we got back to placing. And I think this is Brendan's last time placing the rubber bands on the ball. But after way too long, we were done, and the ball is huge, and the bands are way too tight. Just look at me standing on it and then trying to bounce stuff on it. And I finally rolled it back on the scale and weighed it in at 541 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I visited Soup Timmy, a Rubik's Cube artist, because a little while back he inspired me to make my own Rubik's Cube art, and I ended up making Shrek. But Timmy's like a Rubik's Cube pro, and he can solve a Rubik's Cube in under 10 seconds. I scrambled one for him, and it's almost as if he slows down time, because he got it done in literally 7.6 seconds. Then he showed me he can even solve one with one hand in 30 seconds while playing with a ping pong ball. He even has the fastest time while solving a cube hula hoop. I then had him mix up a cube for me, and then I beat his record, and finished off his giant art wall. Guess I'm just a pro. No, but for real, this stuff is insane. He even showed me a magic trick where he instantly solved the cube, then showed me this giant cube and a fidget spinner. So it's rubber band ball part 62, and I wanted to try something a little bit different this time. I took about 5 pounds of bands and looped them all together like this with the help of my friend, and we had this long strand that we tried to wrap around the ball, but it was kind of hard, so I rolled it, and that was still pretty hard, and the bands kept falling off, but eventually we got it. But we wanted to test if the same amount of bands was better just placing the normal way, and after we placed that pile, we realized it was. So we got out 3 more bags and placed the entire pile. And these videos always take so long to make, so leave a like if you actually want me to keep going and adding on to this ball. It's just huge now. Just look at it again next to a basketball. And then we put it on the scale and weighed it in at 555 pounds. So again, like if I should keep going. So one day I ordered this giant bubble dome thing because I saw it on the internet and thought it looked cool and had to buy it. I got it all the way aired up and it was pretty cool looking. I opened it up, went inside, and it kind of felt like one big quarantine chamber. I was completely separated from the outside world. Here it is inside, and then I got bored and decided to put my giant rubber band ball in it. I put that in a beanbag and then chilled. So comment any cool ideas you have for this thing and I'll do them. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 49, and I have 25 pounds of rubber bands again. I dumped out the whole pile, and when we began placing for a long time, as you can tell by the clouds going by in the background, this took forever. But eventually, we got the entire pile done. And the ball is completely massive. I weighed it in at 263 pounds, and look at me sitting on it and then falling, and we can barely pick it up together. Like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day someone left a comment asking how bulletproof oobleck was, so I'm going to test it. And don't try this at home, I'm a pro. We started with a 22 and it did this. Look at the slow-mo. And it put a bunch of bullet holes in the box. Then we shot at it some more. Here's another slow-mo of it obliterating and then doing that. Then I poured it all into this other container to mix up and make more oobleck and blow it up. And here's that. Then I decided to blow up this other bag of cornstarch. And then we wanted to test if a tiny rubber band ball was bulletproof. And we shot it and it knocked a few bands off. Then a watermelon and it did this. So one day I filled this inflatable pool up with oobleck, liquid solid. When you hit it, it's a solid, and when you move slowly in it, it's a liquid. We spent a long time, like 2 hours, mixing it all up until we had it full. And it was working. I stepped in it slowly and sank and then ran on it, and I was alright. I also tried hitting it with an axe and almost got it stuck. Yeah, don't try this at home. This stuff is crazy though. I got in and got stuck, so I just buried myself in it and then put some on my head. Then I got out and tried to walk on my hands. And it worked for a little bit. Then I put some on my face, and when I slapped myself, it didn't even hurt. Then I laid down, got out quickly. My friend jumped across it, and then I hit it with a tennis racket in slow-mo. And then washed off. Comment any other ideas. So one day, it was the 4th of July, and this was a failed sparkler bomb. Don't try anything in this video at home. And this was what I thought was a smoke bomb, but it was one of these, so I blew it up on the pool, and then put one in the microwave, but it didn't go off, so we had to open it. This all left the microwave pretty charred. Then we threw a smoke bomb in the pool, and it actually went underwater. And it wouldn't hydro dip this thing, so then we got a pink smoke bomb, and it made like a little boat thing. Then I launched this plane, we threw this thing, and launched another thing, and blew up some stuff in the microwave, crushed the microwave, and threw it in the pool. And I'm going to be seeing how dirty I can keep this pool, so stay tuned. So one day I got a bunch of helium to fill up this giant 6-foot water balloon and an air mattress. I filled up the balloon until I was out of helium, and then I let it go and grabbed it. Then I tried to see what it could lift, and not really anything. Then I punched it and kicked it and slammed it on the pool, which made it fly away. Like this. And the balloon just kept going off into the distance. And the next day, it was time to try an air mattress. I filled it all the way up, and it didn't do anything. So I put it in the pool, threw the shovel on it, and hit it, and then sucked some helium up, and then so did my cameraman.
Part 61.
So one day, someone commented saying I should throw these giant Orbeez at cars in the street. And I'm going to do that, but first I wanted to test some other stuff out. Throwing it against the wall, dropping one, throwing one at my friend, tossing one in this pool of Orbeez and comparing them, lighting them on fire, which didn't do much. So then I tried putting them in the microwave, which didn't do much until we put it in for over 30 seconds and they all started popping. And were really hot to touch. Then I tried crushing them with this ball, look at the slow-mo, and then it was time to throw them at this car, which I think they got mad. So I just ran. So I'm now to part 69 of my giant rubber band ball, and it's now over 700 pounds, but we're going to get it even bigger. I dumped out 25 pounds of bands to place on the ball, and I started placing with the help of my friend Brendan. And we actually placed 3 bands at once the whole time to make it go by a lot quicker. Until eventually we were done. I stood on it, and then tried to walk on it, and tried to walk again. It was actually kind of successful. Then I pushed it over here, dropped this ball on it, jumped on it, and then we tried to figure out how to get on the scale, and weighed it in at 727 pounds. So, like, if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I ordered jumbo Orbeez to see if they were that much bigger than regular Orbeez. I filled it up in this container full of water, and I didn't know how much water to add, so I just added this much, and 24 hours later, it all looked like this. They were really big. Here's a size comparison to regular Orbeez. They looked like little bouncy balls, so then I tried to bounce them, and then this one broke. So then I took this one and bounced it and broke it like this. But they look so cool, I decided to taste one. Don't try them. Then we found this clear one that turned me upside down, and this one was even more round. So let me know what else I should do with these. I'm now to rubber band ball part 60, and we started off trying to do backflips but failed, so then we weighed it in at 496 pounds. And I used a lot of rubber bands to build this giant rubber band trampoline, but I had enough left over to get it over 500 pounds. We took a little break and then came back, and we finished off the entire pile, and it was done. The bands are now getting really tight in the ball, and look at its size comparison next to a tire. And then I tried to crush this watermelon but missed and crushed the pool instead. Tried to get it out, a lot of water came out, and it wouldn't crush the watermelon, so then I just took it inside, fell on it, and weighed it at 515 pounds. So, like, if I should take it to 1,000 pounds. So one day I got another super strong magnet to go magnet fishing with. First I wanted to test it, picking up this chair first, then this helium tank, and it did a pretty good job, so I was ready to go fishing after I threw this frisbee thing. I first took it out to this pond to test it and threw it out, pulled in, and for a while I was getting a lot of nothing. And after a long while, eventually on a really big throw, I hooked something and pulled up this thing. Kind of bizarre. Then I dropped it and accidentally pushed it out further with my magnet, but I got it. And then the next day we went to a different pond to test. I dragged the magnet along and pulled up this. Yeah. And then I threw it back and pulled up whatever this is. It was like a coin and a really black piece of metal. And after that I felt something really hook on, but I couldn't get it. One day I ordered a bunch of giant Legos to build a brick wall and run into it. So we built the brick wall, and then I got on the scooter and ran into it and completely nailed my nose and made it bleed a little bit. Yeah, it really hurt. So then we put it back together and took the rubber band ball to it. And after that, I ordered even more Legos because I was like, I need to make the wall even bigger. And then I tried to jump over it, which was kind of a fail. So let me know what else I should do or if I should buy more. This is rubber band ball part 64, and it can barely fit through a doorway, and here it is next to a tire. I rolled it to the other end of the warehouse and then decided to crush a bunch of poppers with it. Here it goes. And after that, I rolled it onto the scale, breaking this little wood ramp and weighing it in at 585 pounds. And it was now time to get the ball over 600 pounds, so I dumped out a bunch more bands, and then look at this other angle. The ball is huge, and the camera just doesn't do it justice how big it is. And my friend helped me place bands for so long, until eventually the pile was out. And the ball was done. I rolled it over the beanbag and then used it as like a giant exercise ball that's just huge and weighs like 600 pounds. I crushed this ball pit ball and then pushed it with the hoverboard onto the scale and weighed it at 605 pounds. So like if I should keep on going. So one day it was super windy outside, so I went to Walmart and decided to get all the stuff to make a homemade parachute. I had duct tape and trash bags, and then I lined up the trash bags 3x2 and duct taped them all together on both sides until I had something that resembled a parachute. And then I picked it up and took it outside to see how it blew in the wind. And the wind could catch it, so I was fairly sure it would work. And before I used it, I wanted to test it on a 5-pound weight, and it didn't do good on that run, so I threw it off the roof and it did a little bit better. Here it is. And then I threw it off the carport after that, and it did alright, so then I jumped. Yeah, don't try it home. So one day I got out my giant hamster ball to fill with ball pit balls, cause why not? Now this one has a hole in it, unlike the last one, but I'm gonna go in it anyway. I splashed around in it, kicked it, and then went off. And it was pretty crazy. I don't know how to describe it, but then some balls started to leak out, and even more. And after all the balls fell out, the wind picked up and started blowing them everywhere. But we got all those cleaned up, and then the next day filled it back up because I had an idea to tape up the hole and try it again. And it worked just fine. None of the balls were leaking. I ran through the puddle, then ran down the road, then ran back, ran through the puddle again, did another flip, and then came to the stop, and here's what the inside looks like, and let me know what else I should try. I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 45, and I decided to do it outside today. And my rubber band ball also needed bands bad because it was looking kind of gross. And I placed bands out in the nice weather for quite a while. And just enjoying life, you know, placing rubber bands until I was done. And the ball now weighs more than me at 174. It's getting impossible to move, so I just lay on it. And yeah, like if I should keep going. One day after dropping my giant 160-pound rubber band ball on a giant water balloon, it kept on rolling and rolling into the woods down a steep hill, and I had to go get it. So I made my way down into the woods and to the rubber band ball. And a thorn hit me when I tried to get it out, and then I just kept on pushing as much as I could. And it was really heavy at 160 pounds going up a pretty big hill, and I kept falling, but I made my way up and was really tired. But I still had this piece of furniture to smash, so I dropped it on it. Here's the slow-mo. And the pineapple was still alive. And then I got out this 1968 Camaro. Just kidding. So one day I was dropping my giant 160-pound rubber band ball off a bucket lift, and I had some cool stuff to drop on it, including an inflatable pool, an air mattress, and a giant water balloon. I started with this, and it did that. Here's the underwater slow-mo. It hit the water so hard it did this to the ball. Then I got out the air mattress and dropped it on it as well. And it didn't even pop. Look at it. But it did lose some bands when it dropped. So then I tried again with the pineapple on it, but I missed the pineapple. Then I did the water balloon, and it completely smashed it. Here's the slow-mo. And then it rolled off and went into the woods, and it just kept going down this very steep hill. Like if you want to see how I get it out. So it's now rubber band ball part 71, and this ball is insanely massive at 750 pounds, but we're going to make it even bigger. And this time, half the bands are these half-inch bands that I've never tested before, so we'll see how they go. And the bands were just really tight, so we ended up moving the ball to see if it would make it better, and it did, because none of the bands had been placed on that side that much. And it also helped make the ball more even. But eventually, after a long time, we were done. The ball is huge. Here I am trying to stand on it and walk on it and almost fall. I dropped some Orbeez on it, threw a water balloon at it, and crushed a water balloon, and then weighed it in at 777 pounds. So like this video if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I filled an even bigger pool up with Orbeez. I filled the other one up with about 2 million Orbeez, and I'm going to fill this one up with millions more. And we were going to reuse the old Orbeez in this pool too, but they kind of smelled bad, so we just went with all new, and it looked like this. It was pretty insane looking and really colorful. There's millions and millions of colorful little orbs. I got in it and then splashed around, then jumped in and tried to swim across, then jumped off this mini trampoline, and I even put this inflatable zebra in there and tried to make it look like I was in a weird rap video, and fell in, like if I should add even more Orbeez. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 70. It knocked over all these crates. Then I zeroed out the scale and weighed it in at 730 pounds, and it was time to add a bunch more bands. So my friend Brennan and I got busy placing this entire pile, which took so long, and we ended up taking a break and coming back the next day to finish it. But eventually it was done, and the ball is now even bigger. Look at it next to my head, me jumping on it, then me rolling it to Brendan, him rolling it back even faster, then dunking on it, and we weighed it back in at 755 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day I went to one of those warehouses that has overstocked Amazon pallets you can buy, and I bought this one for $500 to see what was in it, like a cool mystery box. I opened it up at my warehouse, and there was these pillows, a sleeping bag, a fan, a dog bed, and this automatic dog food feeder. And this thing that we didn't know what it was, but it actually ended up being a sword. And at this point, I was already happy with my purchase. Next was some camping stuff, a Christmas tree, a trash can, a nice microwave, a not so nice microwave, a bottle of water, a Serta rolly chair, this thing, and this outdoor bench. And we added everything up to be worth over $1,000. Then we tested out the sword and first used the wrong side, but then destroyed a can. And comment down below if I should try to sell all this stuff or just use it. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 67, and we actually made a couple more tiny rubber band balls. Here they are on a mini trampoline. And the big one was too big for it, so we just put it on the scale and weighed it in at 655 pounds. And now it's time to make it bigger. I dumped out a whole nother pile. Then my friend and I got to placing bands for a really long time. And the bigger this ball gets, the harder it is for it to look bigger. So we got to add a lot of bands every time. And we finished up the pile, and then I wanted to test if it would go through a doorway, and it wouldn't. It's too big now. And I failed trying to get it back on the scale, so we had to both push it on the scale and weigh it in at 679 pounds. So like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I bought a watermelon because a lot of people want to know how I made this giant 600-pound rubber band ball, and it all started with a watermelon and a lot of rubber bands. And I'm going to do it all again with this watermelon so you guys can see. I put a bunch of rubber bands on the watermelon until eventually this happens. Bam, and all the rubber bands fly together and create a little ball. And I was kind of covered in watermelon, but I had this little ball, so I was happy. We threw the watermelon at the car, and then we were ready to make this ball neat. And I spent a little while double knotting a bunch of bands around this ball until it was pretty round and neat, and bounced pretty good. And I even crushed it with the giant rubber band ball, so let me know what else I should do. So one day I decided to turn this warehouse into a cool video spot. Well, first I had to clean the place up, so I started by power washing the entire warehouse. And I actually power washed a few more times off camera, but this is the one I filmed the entire thing of. I washed the entire floor, and then put some of this acid down, scraped some of this stuff up, and it looked like this. Then it was time to paint. Bam. It looked really good painted and was almost done, but I got this bean bag, this hoop, this trampoline that I did a flip on, and then I shot the hoop, did a dunk thing, and there's also this loft thing, but comment any video ideas you have for me. So this is rubber band ball part 55, and I dumped out another 25 pounds of rubber bands and started placing. And I actually have a new scale on the way. It can read all the way up to 1,000 pounds, and I think the ball will be 400 pounds after I'm done with this pile, but we'll have to test it when the scale gets here. I launched some of these bands, and then I compared the ball next to me, and it's completely massive, and there's no chance I can pick it up anymore. But it's way easier to stand on than ever before, and I can even, flip off it. This ball is just completely crazy, so if you want me to take it to 1,000 pounds. So one day I got a bunch of bubble wrap and ramen noodles to make 2 separate boats for my Will It Boat series. I started with the bubble wrap and taped these 3 things together with a little bit of cardboard and went off on the creek. It was hard to balance on, but it floated at first. And I floated for a while until eventually water started to seep in and I had to get off and drag it to shore. Then I threw a rock and the next day got started on this ramen noodle boat. And the plan was to keep all the ramen in the boxes because I didn't want any of the noodles to get in the water. But I finished the boat and took it out to the creek and it floated pretty decently, but when I got on it, it started to sink. And it stayed afloat, but not with me. Maybe a squirrel. So one day on rubber band ball part 54, I loaded up the giant rubber band ball with my brother and we drove it out to a warehouse where I would store it. I let the rubber band ball out and stopped it, and this is its new home. And then I dumped out a bunch more bands to begin working on it that night. And my friend and I got busy placing as many bands as possible as the night began to get darker. Now I'm in the process of getting another scale for this thing so I can get the exact weight perfectly. But it's massive and weighs around 370 pounds. I rolled it around, ran with it, and then rolled it back. If you want me to keep on adding bands. So one day someone commented and told me to make a boat out of plastic containers. So I made one out of these plastic bottles. I taped this seat on like this, and it was ready to float down the creek. I got on and I took off, and it was kind of hard to balance, and then I fell. But I got back up and continued on down the creek. The boat was kind of unstable, but I continued on as far as I could go. And when I made it to the big current, I was unbalanced and fell off. And then I lost track of the boat. It was floating down the creek, so I chased after it and hopped on. And then fell again. And also chased the oar down and finally headed back. Comment what else I should make a boat out of. So one day someone commented on this video where I tried to replicate this video and said I had the timing all wrong. And they were right. This was my first attempt at it, and it didn't do anything but make a bunch of waves. So I went to Walmart and got a rounder floaty and then tried again. And this time I tried to make the timing. That first try was better. And then the second try I did this and really tried to time it up. And it was my best run yet. And I actually got the waves to knock me down. And I also used a bunch of slow-mo in this video because I accidentally shot it in slow-mo. You can even see on this next run then a wave hitting the ring of the pool and then me falling. And then on this next one I did it really good and went like that. And you know I had to use that slow-mo. Comment any other ideas you want me to try. So one day I saw this video on TikTok of this guy jumping up and down in this pool and making all these waves and then collapsing like this. So I wanted to test it out and see if it would work with me. So I drug a pull out and filled it up. So then I took out a floaty, aired it all the way up, and got in and tried to repeat exactly what the guy did, jumping up and down, but I didn't see much progress. And there was no waves that made me crash, so then I just made this little whirlpool. After that, I tried again to do the splash thing, didn't work, so I swam around, did a little flip, and then got in the hamster ball. I flipped around in that and then tried the wave thing with it, and it wasn't working very well, so I just did another flip and then tried the wave thing again. And even again, but they all failed, so comment any other ideas you have. So it's now rubber band ball part 56, and I bought a 1,000-pound scale to weigh it, and it weighs in at 396 pounds, but we gotta get it to 1,000. So my friend and I began placing a giant pile of bands for what felt like an eternity, and it got dark, and we kept on placing until we were completely out. And now we gotta weigh it, but first I wanted to test standing on it, so I ran on it like a barrel, then I did that, then stood on it, and then fell again. And here it is next to my head. Then I put it back on the scale and it weighed in at 422, then 428. So I don't know, but like if I should keep on adding bands. So one day someone said I should try to go to the pawn shop again, so I'm going to take my rubber band ball, this chain, and some other stuff. I put the ball in my car and then got my bling on and then went inside the pawn shop and said,
What's going on?
I'm back. Got a few more things.
Hey, what you got today?
Bling on this
Wow,
time.
that's blingy.
First off, I got this tiny rubber band ball.
Is this an offspring of that one?
Sure, yeah.
Having babies? What's up with that?
Want to buy it? I then told him I wanted $50 for it, and he said,
$50 for $5 worth of rubber bands? Better pass on that one.
So I then threw it and got out my genuine gold watch. And he didn't seem to think it was gold.
You got screwed.
Walmart, what a ripoff.
They do that to a lot of people.
Probably explains why it was like $10. And after that, I got out my chain and said it was probably worth.
Gold's probably worth about 30K.
He looked at me like I was crazy and then weighed it.
90 grams.
Is that a lot?
No.
Oh.
And he ended up passing on the chain, so I got out the rubber band ball. There was 80 pounds last time I brought it in, and now over 100.
You're a lot stronger than you look.
It would take a lot for me to let this thing go. What's your best offer?
You get $150 for it.
And I knew I couldn't do it. So I threw the ball down and headed out, knowing I'll probably never sell it. So after destroying our microwave with my 100-pound rubber band ball, someone left a comment saying to do a phone. But first, I'm going to do this broken TV my neighbor gave me. I put the ball on there and threw it. And it didn't do very much damage, so I just threw it again. And it mainly just bounces on it, so I stepped on it a bunch and then got out a giant snowball that was left over. And that was pretty cool and left me with a snowball. And then I got out the phone. I set it down, then threw the ball on it, but it missed, so I threw it again, and it cracked it. Look at it. I'm just kidding, this is a fake phone. It's actually smashed now. So one day someone commented for me to drop my rubber band ball on a microwave, so I'm going to do that. I'm also going to crush this piece of furniture along with a few other things with this giant 100-pound rubber band ball. So I got in the ladder and threw it, and it did that. I then picked it up and plugged it in to test it would still turn on, and it did, but the doors broke. Next, I got this jug of water I just filled up with the hose, and it did that. Then this bouncy ball that was way louder in person. And last but not least was this piece of furniture I found in my attic, and it did that. Let me know what else I should crush with my rubber band ball. So I'm now to part 37 of this giant rubber band ball. And it's getting pretty giant, but everyone still wants it to be bigger. So I ordered more rubber bands, dumped them into a pile, and started placing. And then this happened because it's getting hard to place them. But I kept on going, finishing the pile, and then I took a break and went outside to play with the ball in the snow. And there wasn't much snow, but I made as big a snowball as I could, set it on the rubber band ball, and then crushed it. And then I came back to place another pile. I dumped it out, and then I placed it a little bit differently this time. I just threw all the bands on the ball. Bam. Magic. And the ball actually broke the scale, and the scale won't read anymore, so I don't know how much it weighs. But I took it out of the coal sack, and it's just pretty heavy. So, like Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I went to Walmart and got all the rubber bands they had to make another rubber band ball. Because a lot of people have been wanting me to cut my giant 300-pound rubber band ball in half with a 1,000-degree knife. But I don't want to do that, so I'm going to make another smaller one, starting with this small one and adding a bunch more bands to it. Until eventually it looked like this. And it wasn't near as big as my giant one, but check out this cool little trick when you drop them. It launches them. And it was time to cut first this even smaller one. It cut it right in half and burnt right through it. And then this one. And it's worked its way through. And eventually I sawed a little bit and it just popped all the bands off. Remember, don't try any of this stuff at home. It wouldn't go through the tinfoil ball, so I just threw the knife at the tree and stuck it. So I'm now at rubber band ball part 51, and it is huge. I didn't get quite as many rubber bands this time, though, because there was a delay in shipping this week. But the ball's close to 300 pounds now, and I want to get it there. I placed this entire pile all the way until my phone died and stopped recording. But I still finished the ball and tried to weigh it, but the scale was being weird and wouldn't tell me any accurate numbers that made any sense. But I'm assuming it's close to 300 pounds. And the ball almost tried to roll into a car, like if I should keep going. So one day after making Shrek entirely from Rubik's Cubes, I decided I wanted to frame it on the wall as art. But I had to put it in a different frame that would be better. And when I tried to lower it, I thought I ruined it, but I fixed it and then relowered it, put it in this, and then put it in the better frame. This was the frame that would hang on the wall, and it was a lot more secure. We poured resin all over it and did the best we could to smear it. It's probably not perfect. I've never done that before. Then we sanded the frame and painted the whole thing black to make the orange pop. And once that was all finished, we hung it on the wall. And here it is. It looks really good. When you walk in, this is what you see. So one day someone commented telling me I should make the plane even bigger, so I put two boards together and made the plane even bigger. Here's the new one. But it still had a problem. The tip was raising up, so we added some weight on the tip and it flew pretty good. Here it is flying into a tree. But I wanted to get it up on this roof to throw into wide open spaces, so I threw it up and then tried to figure out how to get up. And then I found this thing and used it as a ladder. I was up and here was the first throw. It was kind of bad, but the next flight was actually pretty good. But I still wanted a perfect flight, so I threw it again, and this one looked like it was going to be perfect until it raised up a little bit and then did a flip. And then I threw it again, and this looked like the best flight yet. It was just sailing until it hit a tree. I also tested this store-bought plane, which flew pretty good, and then gave this one last throw into the field. And I'd say this plane was a success. So one day I bought a ton of cardboard sheets at Walmart to build the biggest cardboard boat I could make while still functioning. And I used to make cardboard boats all the time, but I hadn't made one in a while and I felt like making a huge one. I pieced the boat together, taped it up completely, taped all the flaps down, flipped it over, taped this, and then put a bunch of sheets in the bottom. And after that was taped completely, we flipped it back over and then added another sheet, taped that down fully, and then I decided to add some Flex Seal. I did this to help waterproof the boat, and then I sprayed this on there. But I ended up coming back the next day and adding another coat anyway because it felt flimsy still. After that was done drying, it was time to test it out at the creek. I put it in the water, got in, and laid down. That was the only way I could be stable. The current wasn't very strong, so I tried to row without much luck, and then I saw a leak, and the boat started to collapse in. I kept on pushing, trying to stay afloat, but with no luck, we eventually went down, and I was never seen again. Not really, but I was pretty sad. So one day someone commented that I should make a second rubber band ball, and I already have three. This one, and my giant one. This one's huge. I can sit on it, but not sit on the other ones because they weigh 0.6 pounds and 15 pounds. Well, the giant one is 777 pounds, but I'm still waiting on a shipment of bands, so I'm going to add on to the other one. I just grabbed a bunch of random bands at Walmart, then went back to the warehouse, threw the ball on the table, dumped out a bunch of bands, and got to placing. I started with all the colored bands to make it look really cool, and it did. It ended up looking like this. It was cool. Then I moved on to these ones to make it really tight and compact. And after a while, I was done. Here it is. Rolled it off the table and compared it next to the giant ball, then my head, and then threw it as high as I could. And it's pretty bouncy and weighs 17 pounds. Like if I should keep doing this ball too. So one day someone commented saying I should freeze the jumbo Orbeez, so that's what I'm going to do. I put them in the freezer, and the next day they looked like this. They were all stuck together, and it wasn't as cool as I thought it was going to be. I tried putting hot water on it, and it didn't really fix it. But I ordered some more jumbo Orbeez to test another comment, which was pouring lighter fluid in to see if it would soak them and light them on fire. But when I came back the next day, it didn't soak up any of the lighter fluid. I was disappointed, but I had one more idea, pouring all these little Orbeez onto this trampoline and jumping, which it looked really cool. Then I did a flip. So one day I put my 123-pound rubber band ball back on the zip line to destroy a cabbage, an Xbox, and a giant brick wall. Starting with the Xbox, I pulled back and launched. And it hit it pretty hard, but not hard enough, so I put it back on and hit it again. Here's the slow-mo. There goes my old Minecraft worlds. I put it back up for one final hit, and it got totally toasted. And now it was time for the cabbage. I set it down, and it didn't really do anything, so I threw it at a tree. Then I got out the Lego brick wall and built it up. I made it into like a giant rainbow wall, then went back and threw the band ball at it. Yeah, it was pretty cool. The full video where we smash other stuff is on my YouTube, Dylan Ayres. So one day I decided to take my giant 123-pound rubber band ball to the gym. And my friend tried overhead pressing it to start out. And he got it. So then I tried, and I just couldn't do it. And then we saw a scale and decided to weigh it, and it weighed 123. Then I tried benching it and about crushed myself. Then we convinced this other dude in there to try to overhead press it, and he also got it. Then my other friend tried and kind of got it. Then my friend who's 6'7" tried, put it on his knee first, and then also kind of got it. Then I tried again and didn't quite get it, but did a little bit better. Then my friend tried benching it and about crushed himself too, and then got one rep with some stability. And then we had the idea to put it on a treadmill. We put it on and it started rolling backwards. And we got it to just roll on there by itself, and it went all the way to the back and then came off. Then my friend golfed with it. Let me know what else I should do with this giant rubber band ball. So one day I decided to make a giant paper airplane out of this board stuff. And my first design was just a basic airplane that had a problem of the nose going up. Except for this one flight that did really good for some reason. But I looked up on the internet and there were some ways to fix this with this type of design that kind of helped. But I ended up making a whole nother plane with a slightly different design, taking them to this cliffside. I first tested the planes off this little hill and they did pretty decent. And then I threw them off the cliff. And the first one just kind of went and then nosedived. And the second one went up, and then also nosedived. And I took them back up and tried again, and the first one was doing really good until it flew in the tree, and the second one was doing really good until the wind picked up a lot and made it nosedive. The planes eventually fell out of the tree, and I had a few more good flights, including this one. So I think I'm just going to wait for a less windy day and try again. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 48. I dumped out 5 bags of rubber bands and got to placing. With some help because this was going to take a long time alone and this was a lot of bands. We kept placing and eventually had all the blue paint covered. And then eventually we got tired and took a break and then came back and finished off the entire pile until there was no bands left. Put it on the scale and it weighed in at almost 240 pounds. And it takes 2 people to pick it up. Like if I should keep on adding bands to it. So one day I decided to make a life jacket out of great stuff and a pair of slides. Started with the life jacket, then outlined a pair of my slides and filled that out. I messed with the slides a little bit off camera to make them look like this, but the next day they were pretty good. I could walk in them, jump, and even run. I also threw them in this tiny pool and they floated. And then I got out the life jacket and tried to run the pool thinking I would run on water, but I didn't. And then I took the life jacket to the creek to test it. And when I fell in, the great stuff life jacket perfectly saved me. And it worked amazingly. Still do not attempt this. So one day I decided to fill this giant hamster ball up with water and swim in it. And this one's a lot bigger than my last one, so it'd be easier to fill with water. And I stopped it at this level so I could still be able to get in and swim in it. And then I jumped in, and it was pretty cool inside. I went underwater, and here I am. And then I came back up and put some goggles on and went back underwater again. And it was really cold, so I got out for a sec, got in the hot tub, and then got back in with a floaty. And then spun around. And then I decided to turn it into a giant batch of Kool-Aid. Full videos on my YouTube, Dylan Ayres. One day I decided to take my old giant paper airplane that didn't fly very well and recreate it with great stuff. So we coated the whole thing in this great stuff and outlined it until it was done. And then we let it dry and came back. And the paper wasn't very easy to peel off. It took quite a while, but eventually I got it and it looked like this. And then the next day it was ready to fly. Yeah, the first flight wasn't great, neither was the second, and not really the third. It was a little bit better. And after another fail, I cut some off and had this flight. It was pretty good. Then I threw it in a pool and jumped in. So it's now part 47 of the giant rubber band ball. I let it hit a ramp and then got out 25 pounds of bands, dumped them all out into a pile, and started placing them. And this was a lot of bands, the most I've ever placed. So I thought, how could I do this more efficiently? And I had the idea, pay someone. So I paid 2 friends that day to finish up this pile. And they got busy placing a lot of bands while I watched occasionally and then switched in and out even once. But then they kept going until eventually they had a much smaller pile left and just threw that pile on and it was done. And it now weighs 213 pounds. And I also decided to spray paint it because I saw a comment that told me to. Like if I should keep going. So one day I ordered this stuff called Great Stuff, which is basically expandable foam insulation. And my goal was to build a boat out of it. Not just any boat, a cardboard boat. Because a while back I had a series on TikTok where I tried to make cardboard boats float. And I was never very successful. But I used the best cardboard boat design I knew how to make. And then I was going to cover the entire outside in the Great Stuff. And hopefully it'll float. So I finished taping up the entire bottom. Like this. And I already had a decent looking boat. Then we covered the entire bottom in the Great Stuff. And then later we covered the rest of the sides. And when I came back the next day, it was solid looking. And it was ready to be tested in the creek. I walked it down and then got in. And I started to float away. It was working flawlessly without any problem. So I just kept on rowing and having a good time. And then I about ran into a tree. And then I started heading out further. And it was the best boat I'd ever made. I just kept going. So one day I ordered around 300 Rubik's Cubes to try to make one of those paintings that I keep seeing on TikTok. We made a frame, I tested it out, and it would do. It was alright. But then I had to think what I would make and how I would make it. And I decided I would make Shrek using a color grid type thing. So then I started placing cubes, and I underestimated how long it would take. It ended up taking like 4 hours. And I didn't have black, so I ended up using orange. So when I got done, I rearranged some cubes and also took some stickers off and made it look even better. And the further you go, the more it looks like Shrek. So it's now rubber band ball part 46, and now I just take the rubber band ball outside to work on it because it's too big to just keep inside. I had my pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands and placed the whole pile for a long time until I was all out of bands and pretty tired. And now the ball weighs like 190 pounds almost. Here I am trying to jump across it and then fly, and I can't pick it up. And I'm gonna have to order some even bigger bands, so like if you want me to keep going. So one day I took my giant hamster ball out in the rain and filled it up with more water to slide around in. It was pretty cold, but it was also really slick and fun to slide around on. You could just run around and then start flying in circles. Here I am with a lot of momentum. Then I got cold, so I took a break and ran to a puddle and then went and jumped into my hot tub. After that, I got out, filled the ball back up with more water, and got back in and rolled around through the puddle, slipped around, ran down the road, and did a flip. And then did another one. So one day I bought like 1 million Orbeez to dump in this inflatable pool and get in. Because I've always seen people do this kind of stuff and always wanted to try it. So here it goes. I dumped all the Orbeez out into this pool, mixed it up, and here's an hour time lapse of it growing. And this is what they looked like at the end of the hour. Yeah, they still needed to get bigger, so I came back the next day and it was completely full. Look at it. I got in the pool and the Orbeez got huge. Look at this one. Then I decided to lay down in it, move around. I moved my legs around like this, made a bunch of waves, splashed my face with Orbeez, and jumped in them. Then I dropped this rubber band ball in them and it made a pretty big splash. Here's the slow-mo and here's another drop. Like if I should fill this pool up to the top. So one day it was rubber band ball part 68, and the rubber band ball is now almost 700 pounds, but today we're going to get it there. And somebody in the last video commented to get colored rubber bands, so I got these black rubber bands so you can see them placed on the ball. And the cool thing about 2 different colors is you can see them all going onto the ball, and it took us quite a while, but eventually we got it done. And the ball looks really cool now. It looks kind of 3-dimensional. Look at it. The black bands are more sleek than the other ones. And the ball is so massive. Look at it in comparison to my head. Then I zeroed out the scale and put it back on, and it weighed 706 pounds. So, like if I should keep on adding bands. So one day I ordered this human hamster wheel to float down the creek on. I got it out and aired it all the way up to test it out and run in it. And it was kind of short, but I made it work and I could roll in it and it was pretty cool. So then I loaded it up and took it to the creek. I put it in the water, got on it, and we were off. The only problem was the creek was pretty low and there wasn't much current that day. So I had to do a lot of spinning and tried to make it out to the current. Because further down the creek there was a little bit of a current and I tried my best to make it to it until I was there. And once I got there, it was pretty insane in this thing. Here's the video of me. And me inside, and then I just kept on going forever. No, I'm kidding. I came back and then took a nap. So I'm now on part 21 of this rubber band ball, and no one ever seems to want me to stop. So I went to Walmart and bought all the colored rubber bands they had. Then I went home and started out with the bag I ordered on Amazon, and I placed that entire pile. And then I took a break as usual and came back to place all the colored rubber bands. And I dumped them all out into a pile and then placed it all, which took quite a while, but I finished, and it now weighs 45 pounds. Could probably take me out, and I broke my already broken basketball goal with it. But hey, I can stand on it. And like if you want me to keep going. So one day someone commented that I need to put more coats of Flex Seal on the egg. So I Flex Sealed another egg and then put another coat on the other side. And after that I let it dry, then put another coat on. And then put another coat on. And then put one last coat on. And it was done and seemed pretty sturdy, so I tested it from a waist-high drop, and it held up pretty well. So I went a little higher, and it seemed a little bit mushed in. So I threw it up in the air, and then it was like completely mushed in. So I just threw it up one more time for the heck of it, and it was crushed. So it's now part 23, and I'm really starting to think it's never going to end. But that's okay. I went to Walmart and, bought a bunch of colored rubber bands, then went home, dumped them all out into a nice pile. And then I started placing them, and it's to the point now where the bands sometimes break, and it hurts. I took a break, as usual, and came back to place this bag I ordered on Amazon, and I placed it, and the ball now weighs over 51 pounds. Could probably kill a bear, and is no longer a good basketball. More like a chair. Here's it next to a basketball. And here's my trick chat. Ooh. Like if I should keep on going. So one day I got a comment that said to Flex Seal a water balloon, so I got Flex Seal in a water balloon and filled the water balloon up. I shook the can and then sprayed it, and it popped. So I filled up another balloon, and it held up while I sprayed it. I finished it and let it sit, but when I came back, it was popped. So then I tried freezing one. It froze overnight, and the next day I took it out and Flex Sealed it. I sprayed it until it was completely black, and then I took it into the garage to dry, hoping it wouldn't melt. And it didn't, but the balloon still popped. Let me know what else I should try.
All right.
So I've been making this rubber band ball for a long time, and it's now part 30. And I ordered another pack of these big rubber bands and placed the entire pile. And after I was done with that, I got the pile of even more of these big colored rubber bands than I did last time. And when I was done with that, the ball was looking pretty good at 76 pounds. I took it out to the street, picked it up, and threw it the best I could, and then tried again. And I ended up just laying on it and then standing on it. So like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I decided to take my giant 70-pound rubber band ball to an abandoned water park to throw it down a giant water slide. I walked around trying to figure out where the slide dropped off and figured out it dropped off right over there. So I went down there to make sure it was retrievable, and it seemed doable. So I got the rubber band ball, took it up a bunch of stairs, and it was ready to go. On down this old abandoned slide. But first I wanted to try out this little one. So my brother went down there to film, and I threw the ball. And it went pretty fast, so I kind of lost track, but it went all the way down and out. My brother picked it up, and then I was ready to send the big one down. And I pushed it off, and it went down pretty hard and was making a lot of noise. It went around the curve, and then I could see it going through the tunnels. It was going really fast and started making even more noise, so some people started yelling. But despite that, the ball prevailed on and went all the way out. And here's my brother's perspective. That was cool. And then I lugged my rubber band ball home. So one day I wanted to freeze a balloon out in the cold and put food coloring in it like I've seen before on TikTok because it looks really cool. So I put the balloon out there and let it sit. And then I tried to ripstick, but it wasn't really working. So I threw it and then tried to make a snowball, but it was just powder. And I came back the next day and checked on my balloon and tried to do that cool knife cut thing, and it just cut like this. And then all the water started draining out, so I stabbed it quickly and the food coloring didn't really go in it. But I broke it. And then it disappeared in the snow. And then I tried to make a snow angel. One day I decided to take 2 gold chains, 1 fake, 1 kind of real, flex tape, a giant water balloon, and a giant rubber band ball back to the pawn shop.
What's going on? Got doubled up in the chains.
Yeah.
I brought the rubber band ball in again. I just wanted you to see how big it is. I don't think we're going to come to an agreement on a price.
Big. Wow.
And I started off with this.
With this giant water balloon. This is pretty special. It can hold a lot of water, and it's really big.
I asked him what he thought he could give me, and he
You ever
said,
filled it up?
Yeah.
he said he'd do 5, but I thought that was way too low, so then I got out.
Genuine flex tape from Phil Swift himself.
It work good?
Yeah.
Is that flex tape strong enough to lift that ball?
And I didn't know, so we decided to test it. We put it on the ball, he picked it up, and it didn't work. So then I got out the 2
Tell me
chains.
what you think each one of them's worth.
He looked at him and
This
said,
one I think you stole off your curtains.
and then he went and did an acid test on the other one and said it basically it was just gold plated, which is what I thought anyway, so I just kept it. And then I left. Full vid will be on my YouTube. So one day I wanted to prank my friend by surprising him with a really bad new car. So I looked on Facebook Marketplace for the cheapest cars I could find that still ran, until eventually I found this one. The car had some damage and smelled pretty bad inside, but it still ran. So we started spray painting it to make it look even worse. I wrote my name, this line, and I just wanted to make the car look as funny as possible. My friend and I added these racing stripes, and then I put a car tree in it to make it smell good. And it was finished. It looked really good, and it was ready to give to him. I invited him to the warehouse the next day and told him I had a surprise. And showed him.
What is this? It's your new car, bro. I know
You've been needing a car.
my car's in the shop. What in the heck? Does it even run? Thanks, then.
Yeah, I know you've been needing a car.
He looked really confused and said,
What's really going on here, though?
The AC kind of works.
I told him it was his car and let him take it for a test drive. And then,
This isn't actually like my car, is it?
What, bro? Do you not like it?
and he didn't really act like he wanted the car, so my friend and I kind of got upset.
Nice things.
After that, he spray painted it some more.
Costs about $250.
Then we did some joyriding, got on the roof, and hit the rubber band ball. So one day I got a comment that said I should launch my giant rubber band ball in my giant slingshot, so I pulled it back, and it did that, as expected. But I also have this little rubber band ball that I pulled back and launched. It went pretty far, and then I launched it in my brother. Right there. And after that, I launched this pool noodle, and then launched it at my brother, but missed that. And then I got this GoPro and decided to launch it with the camera on. I pulled it back, and here's the camera's angle. It spun all around and hit the ground. I found it, and it was still okay, so I tried it again. And this angle was pretty cool. There's my brother picking it up. So I've learned these things are pretty tough, and comment what else I should launch. So one day I got a leaf blower, a skateboard, and an umbrella to try this thing I saw on TikTok. I didn't really understand how it would work, but I put the leaf blower on and tried it, and I didn't move at all. So then I got in a ripstick that I'm more comfortable with, thinking I would just move better, but it didn't do anything. So then I tried going downhill and then even flipping directions with the umbrella, and it didn't work. So then I got sad, but the sunset cheered me up. Psych, I was still pretty mad. I threw the basketball and then kicked it, yeah. So it's now part 29 of this rubber band ball, and I guess I'm just going to keep going. I ordered another box of these thick rubber bands and put the whole pile on my ball. I then took a break and came back later to place all these colored rubber bands that are also supposed to be garbage bag rubber bands. I placed the entire pile and it was done. And it's now 72 pounds. I rolled it downstairs, outside, and into the cul-de-sac. Here it is in comparison to my head, and here's me trying to throw it. And look, the basketball hoop fell over, but I can stand on it. And like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I got a comment that said to use Flex Seal on my giant pumpkin and then drop it, but instead I'm going to use it on a different one because I want to do something better to the other one. I gave it a nice coat of Flex Seal all around, and then I let it dry, and while I waited, we got some fireworks in my brother's poorly carved pumpkin, and then we tried to blow it up, but my brother missed, so we tried another one and it didn't really do anything. So then I got a different one, and it was kind of cool, but the next one was way better. Then it was time for another coat of Flex Seal. I sprayed it all around and then left and came back later to finish off the bottom. And it was ready to drop test. Don't try any of this stuff at home. I dropped it, and it cracked. It just cracked in half, and the Flex Seal held the rest together. But I smashed it and jumped on it. And I'm probably going to blow this 45-pound one up, so stay tuned. So after trying and failing to fix dents with hot glue, my comment section was filled with people telling me to let it cool down for even longer. So that's what I'm going to do. Here I am. Here's the time lapse of it cooling all the way until I didn't even have to touch it. And I then pulled it off and it didn't work. However, it is a pretty big dent. But there's other comments that said to try a plunger, so I tried that for a long time too, using fire and this plunger. This one might have worked if it was a smaller dent, so don't try this at home. So one day I rented a one-man bucket lift to drop my 160-pound rubber band ball on top of stuff. And the first time I went up, I just dropped it on nothing to see how it would bounce. And here it was. Bounced pretty high. And remember, don't try this at home. Then we got out this car to smash. Here's the slow-mo. It put a pretty big dent in the roof. Then my dad went up and dropped it on it. And it put another pretty big dent in the roof. Then I moved onto the windshield and completely caved it in. Here's that slow-mo. And then I did it again. Here's an inside perspective. Yeah, the car was pretty crushed. And then I dropped Mentos and Coke. And this one was the best rocket I ever done in my life. Just look at it. Like if I should crush some more stuff. So one day it was rubber band ball part 44, and first I had to get the ball out of the zip line. I got it out, and then I had to carry it all the way upstairs. I made it up, and then I took it to the room where I placed all my bands and got to place them. I placed the entire pile of like 15 pounds of rubber bands for quite a while until I was done, and I carried it all the way downstairs and weighed it in at like 164 pounds. Then I took it out to the street and just look at it. It's massive. Can't pick it up. I just can kick it. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented for me to use hot glue sticks to try to get the dents out like 5-minute crafts. And I'm going to try because I put quite a lot of dents in this car with my rubber band ball. I went to Walmart, got some hot glue sticks, and then went home to fix these dents. The little lighter wasn't big enough, so I got out this blowtorch, stuck it on, and it pulled the metal but didn't work. So I tried again and still failed. Yeah. So I got out the longer sticks with more fire. Don't try this at home. And failed. And failed. And failed. And failed again. And then I tried to make a smaller dent with a bat, thinking the dents were too big, but that wasn't the case.
This is indeed cap.
So one day, after freezing a giant water balloon and it being hollow, people wanted me to do it bigger and better. And it was going to get colder, so I'm gonna. I let it fill up for even longer this time. And I was also going to let it sit for even longer. I zip-tied it shut, and then let it sit and came back the next day to check it out. And I could stand on it. It was pretty frozen. We gave it another day, and then came back out again. And the balloon had popped somehow, but the ice was still rock solid, and I could stand on it, kind of. I ripped the balloon off, then pushed it over, and it did that. And I threw the ice, and it was really, really strong. It's pretty thick ice. So one day I wanted to freeze a giant 6-foot water balloon in the ice cold. But the hose was frozen, so I tried pouring hot water on it. And when that didn't work, I put it in the hot tub. That got it to thaw out, so I zip-tied the water balloon on and started filling it up. Here it is from the window. I decided to stop it here because we didn't know if too much would make it not freeze. And I struggled to get it off, eventually got it tied, and then here was it at night, kind of frozen. And then the next morning it was solid. I could put my foot on it and even stand on it. So we decided to cut it open. And it was a lot thinner than I thought, so I just smashed it a bunch. Like if I should fill up a bigger one and let it sit for longer. So one day I ordered some heavy-duty water repellent to try and waterproof some things. It said it required 24 hours to dry, and I tried without letting it dry, and yeah. So I got a bunch of random stuff and started waterproofing. First with these shoes so I could run on water. Then this cardboard, then this paper, and then this random hat I found. And also this shirt, which would be great for rainy days. Then I let it all dry and came back the next day. And the cardboard kind of worked because the spray side was way more dry than the other side. And the paper also worked surprisingly well. Pretty dry. Then I put the hat on, and it kind of worked. And then I put on the shirt, which actually worked really well. The water ran right off it. Then I took the shoes on down to the creek, put them on, and tried to run. And it failed, so I walked back sad, and then failed at skipping a rock. So it's now to part 24 of making this rubber band ball, and I went to Walmart and got more colored rubber bands. I got a bunch and then went home and started out with this new pack I ordered on Amazon. They were pretty cool and more stretchy than the normal colored rubber bands. I placed that entire pile and then took a break and came back to place all these other colored rubber bands. I dumped them out into a pile and then placed the entire thing until I was done. And I also ordered this little rubber band ball just for fun to look at and stuff. The big one now weighs 55 pounds and is pretty hard to get down the stairs. And compared to the little one, they bounce similar, but I can stand on this one and not on this one. And I can toss this one, but not this one. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day someone commented for me to try to trade my rubber band ball with the pawn shop again. So I put it in my car, and this would be my third time going. I walked in and said,
I'm back.
Hey, what's happening, Dylan?
I actually have this new ball.
I showed him my new aluminum foil ball first, and he said,
Pretty neat. You from getting an alien invasion.
I was thinking this thing is started it, so it's probably not gonna be worth a ton. $300.
and he kind of looked at me like I was crazy and then asked how many rolls of aluminum foil were in it. So I told him 6, and then he asked how much weight, and I didn't know. So I had him weigh it, and it wouldn't register.
How much did you spend on the foil?
About like 24.
And he passed, so I threw it down and got the rubber band ball.
Almost 80 pounds, and is the most famous rubber band ball in the world, probably, maybe.
That's massive.
He picked it up and then asked how much I'd sell it to him for. And I thought for a second and then highballed him at 25 grand.
1,000? Wow.
And he said his shop could probably only sell it for...
100 bucks.
So I knew we had no deal. I had to pass. I got some candy and then went out the door. And the ball almost went in the street. Let me know any other ideas you have. So I'm now doing a part 2 of this aluminum foil ball because a lot of people seem to like it. And no, I'm not going to be throwing away the ball at all. But anyway, this is the new process. I hammer it down and then put a new roll on. So here's the first roll, completely pat it down. And then the second roll, completely pat it down. And here's the final roll. I got finished with it, patted it down, and then took the mallet and beat it all up. And I was all out of aluminum foil. Here's me messing around and throwing it as high as I can. And here's asteroids falling from the earth. Like if I should keep on adding to it. So I'm now to part 31 of making this giant rubber band ball, and I got another package. I dumped out this pack of pretty big rubber bands and placed the entire pile. And then, like I did last time, got a bunch of these colored garbage bag rubber bands and placed them all. And these ones placed pretty good. I finished, and the ball now weighs 81 pounds. I took it downstairs and out to the cul-de-sac, where I compared it to my head, and then got up and tried to throw it. And then I tried to throw it behind me. And then stood on it. And even tried to ramp it, but just broke the ramp. So like if you want me to keep going, and comment any ideas you have for it. So one day I got this new game called Hot Words to play with my friends, and the loser of the game would have to run in the cold creek. The game can have 2 to 4 teams, with each team having 2 people. Each team chooses a jalapeno card, which has what they can't say on it when trying to get their partner to guess a word. So then I invited my friends over to play me, and my brother. And it was all ready to play. Blake and Austin versus me and Jack. Austin drew a card and a pepper that decided his rules, and then he had 30 seconds to let Blake guess as many words as he can.
Times when you get cut, scratched, you have, yeah, it's a scar.
They progressed forward, and then it was me and Jack's turn.
Scary?
And Jack and I were doing pretty good, just naming off word and word. But the game went on, and Blake and Austin started to pick up the pace, guessing even more words, while Jack and I kind of fell off and eventually lost. They were happy, and we ran in the cold creek at night. So one day I saw one of David Dobrik's TikToks where he was kicking gum into his mouth, so I drove to the gas station to get some gum and try. I had the gum and I was ready to teach myself how to do this. I put 3 pieces in my mouth, chewed it up, blew a bubble, set some cardboard down for the gum to fall on, and kept missing. Then I switched over to this gum and first practiced my form, then went for it. And I just kept missing and using more pieces, and I was starting to get pretty mad and using up a lot of gum. And I got kind of close here when I caught it and stuck it in my mouth, but then I just kept missing, and then got kind of close. Then I had one hit the ceiling, stick to it, and then fall back down. And then one that almost hit the camera. And then one where I knocked down the blinds. And then another close one. And I was down to 2 pieces of gum. The first one hit the ceiling, so I got another one. And it got dirty too, so I washed it off. And then after a long 26 minutes, I finally got one. And then I celebrated. David Dobrik is one talented man. So one day I saw that I left my giant hamster ball out in the leaves for months, so I got a leaf blower, blew all the leaves out, and saw that there was still a bunch of Orbeez, so I cleaned all the Orbeez out, put them in the dumpster. And I also had to hurry because there was a storm coming. I rinsed off the hamster ball, and then decided to try to get in it with these hover shoes. I got in, and then my brother zipped me up and aired me on up. But I had to stop and get out because it got too dark and stormy. But the next day was super sunny, so I got in and tried again. It aired up, and then I put my hood on because it was kind of grimy and went off. I got on the hover shoes, spun around, walked around, and fell. Then I drove a little bit more, went off into the grass, then decided to get out and throw the hamster ball away because it was really grimy. But here's the good news. If this video gets 1.5 million likes, I'll buy a new, bigger, better $800 hamster ball. So one day I decided to make another aluminum foil ball because I couldn't find my other one. So I took a roll and patted it down to a ball and went all around until the roll was empty. And I had this, and then I got another roll and wrapped it all around. And I ended up with this. Then I put the final roll on, patted it down, and bam, an asteroid. Yeah, it's a decent sized ball. I threw it up in the air and then I compared it to my rubber band ball. Then I dropped the 75-pound rubber band ball all over and it made it this cool chair. And then asteroids started falling to the earth, like if I should keep on going. So one day I decided to blow up my giant 45-pound pumpkin. I got some of this explosive stuff and then took it out to the woods, where we then set up a platform for the pumpkin to sit on. I put the pumpkin on it, then we cut a hole out for the explosion dust to go in, mixed it up, and put it in. Then we were ready to launch a fast-moving projectile at it. And do not try this at home. We are trained professionals. But anyway. Here's the close-up slow-mo, and here's the far-away one. And then here's a little boomerang effect now. And this was all that was left on the platform, and the rest was scattered everywhere else, so comment anything else you want me to try. So one day, it's not just what I say at the start of all my videos. It's also the beginning of a story, where ideas become reality. 1 year ago today, I hit 1 million followers on TikTok. And since then, it has completely changed my life. I've done so many crazy things in this time period, and to honor it all, I'm releasing merch. Merch with the one message that has been there through it all. A message that has allowed me to be me, and one that gave me the power to write my own story. So one day, create your own story. Available now at fanapparel.com/Dylan Ayres. So one day I put my rubber band ball back on the zip line to crush some more stuff. I went to Walmart, got this thing, this lamp, this clock, and this other clock, and this weird picture. I put the lamp together like this, and then I first started with the alarm clock and shut it right off. Then hit it with a baseball bat. And then I did the other clock like this. And after that, we set up the picture of whatever this thing is. And it got crushed. Then we put this thing, put the GoPro inside, and it made a cool looking slow-mo. But there wasn't enough damage, so we did it again. And again. Just look at it, getting smashed. And then I just hit it with a baseball bat. Then hit the lamp. Let me know what else I should smash. So I'm now to rubber band ball part 43, and I got another box of rubber bands. I dumped them out, and these bands are even thicker than the last ones. I then dumped out another bag and got to placing them. And it was way easier to place these bands because they're twice as thick, and I got a lot more done with less time. I finished it up, and then I took it all the way downstairs to weigh it, and it weighed in at 149 pounds. I then took it out to the street to try to pick it up, and just look at it next to my head. It's huge, and I couldn't pick it up. Like if you want me to keep on going. So one day I put my 150-pound rubber band ball back on the zip line to crush this car. And it was just a parts car my dad had laying around, so it wasn't a big deal. Pulled it back and threw it at it. And here's the slow-mo caving in that door. Then we saw a cat, and then I threw it at it again. And missed because we moved the truck, so we moved it again and threw it again. And this time it nailed it. It was a pretty big dent, but I still wanted more, so we did it again. And it knocked over the GoPro. Then we did one last go, and it was like the biggest dent yet. Let me know what else I should smash. So one day, after people kept commenting for me to spend 24 hours in the storm shelter, I decided to sleep in it. I shoved an air mattress down there, had my MREs, and I was ready to sleep in it. I then left and came back later that night to actually sleep in it, because I wasn't going to stay in there the whole time. I set up my lantern, turned on these lights, and I was ready to go. And it was pretty cool. I laid down and tried to go to sleep, and then my brother came out to check on me like 2 hours later. We talked for a bit, he told me the time, and then he left, and I ate my MREs. And I didn't put water in the eggs for they were bad, but the ice cream sandwich was still good. And then I went to sleep. And here I was the next morning, and it wasn't that bad a sleep. So one day, my brother and his friend had an idea to take all the ball pit balls from my storm shelter and put them all in our friend Joe's office, who's an insurance agent. So we transported them all to the office, and we had to put them all in here. But first, I spun around in the chair a little bit, and then got to pouring, and we poured out all the ball pit balls, and it was completely covered. I set the GoPro up. We shut the lights off and left, and he was supposed to come back in the morning, but he actually ended up coming in at midnight. And here was his reaction.
What the hell is this? No way. You guys got one this time. Next time, it's not gonna happen.
He then messaged me, so I zoomed over there to get his reaction.
What were you doing back here?
What do you mean? I come back all the time.
Here it is, completely covered.
Dylan, you're still recording me?
So one day after filling my storm shelter up with ball pit balls, people kept commenting for me to fill it completely up. So I bought a bunch more ball pit balls and started filling it up with an insane amount. I dumped every single bag in until it looked like this and left a mess of boxes. I then got a run for it and got scared and then went back and jumped in. It was pretty cool and cushioned my fall. And it's just completely full inside and I can bury myself in it. I threw them all in the air and then I went down under all the balls to check it out and then popped back up. And then I chilled in it with the door shut, and it was kind of cool. So let me know what else I should try or do with my storm shelter. So one day I took my giant 140-pound rubber band ball to this hill to roll it down. And there's also a little jump at the bottom made of snow. I rolled it down, and it just kept on going and going, and then hit the jump. And here's a slow-mo replay. Wow. And then it zoomed off into the parking lot and just kept on going. It was going pretty fast, so I ran after it. And it went all the way into a soccer field. So I climbed over and look at the path it made. And it went all the way from there. So one day I got in my giant hamster ball to take it out in the snow and see how it did. And it made a little path. And then I got out to try to jump in it again and failed. So I then ran to this hill and tried to go over it, but failed on that too. So I pushed it over and put more air into it so I could do it better. And I tried again and failed. And then this time I just failed again. But then I went around and fell out in the snow like this. And then I got out and made a snowball. So one day I rolled my rubber band ball back upstairs because I'm now at part 42. It weighs 123 pounds, and I dumped out 3 more bags, which is 15-ish pounds or something like that. And me and my brother got to placing them. And this was the most amount of bands I've ever placed, so we took a break and took it out to the snow. And I made a snowball, then threw it at it, and then rolled it around in the snow, rolled it over this hill, and then picked it up and dropped it. Then the next day I got back to placing, which was a huge pile that took me a long time to place, but I got it. And the ball was a bit deformed afterwards, but it's okay. It weighs 139 pounds now, and just look at it next to my head, if you want me to keep on going. So one day I took my microwave to the streets to microwave grapes like I saw in a YouTube video, and it's supposed to make plasma. Don't try this at home, but I'm going to try it. You put a glass cup over and wait, and it did nothing at first, so I tried again with some more time, and it still did nothing. And after some more time didn't do much, I decided to cut it like I saw in another YouTube video, and then put it in. And that didn't really do much but make it smoke a little bit more, so I did it again without the glass, and it did that, and then again with more time, it did that. And it only ever left a stain. Let me know how I should get sparks. So one day I got this giant hamster ball, and the next day it was raining, so I decided to get in it in this air-up dinosaur suit. But first I got it in normally just to test out the rain with more mobility. I ran through this puddle twice, and then rolled around a little bit, ran a little bit, and rolled a little bit more, and then got in the dinosaur suit and got in. And it was a struggle because I couldn't really see where I was going, so I only moved around a little bit and then got out and almost hit my head. But I got out and then ran off and jumped in the air. Let me know what else I should try. So after my last trip in my giant hamster ball, I threw it away because it was gross, and I actually ordered a new one that was bigger and better. It was really expensive, but it's massive. I blew it up all the way, and then I got in to test it out. And this one, you can just get in without airing it up while you're in. It was pretty big inside, and then I just ran and did a bunch of flips and stuff. And my last one, you'd get hurt if you fell, but this one has 2 layers, so it's cushioned. I ran out to the street and then just laid around for a second. And here's the inside perspective. Me doing a flip. I tumbled one more time and then let my brother go for a spin. He went out pretty far and then got out. Comment any ideas for videos with this giant thing. So after failing to destroy this snowman with my water gun and giant rubber band someone commented to fill the super powerful water gun up with boiling water and then shoot it. But first I had to make another head because the other one was broken. I made it, put it on, and he was ready. I let some water boil, put the gun in, and it reacted like this. So don't try this at home because it almost burnt me. So I just filled it up with hot tub water and then went out and shot it a bunch of times. Until eventually the snowman looked like this. But that wasn't enough, so I got a bow and arrow out and shot it with a few arrows and then beat its head in. But the body is still rock solid. Let me know what else I should try. So one day it was snowing outside, and I decided I wanted to build a giant snowman and destroy it with my giant 100-pound rubber band ball. So I started with a snowball, and it got bigger and bigger till eventually we had our base. We cleaned it up a little bit, and then I rolled around another snowball until I had the midsection. Put it on, smoothed it out, and then put on the head. We smoothed out the rest and gave it arms and a chain and turned him into Drippy Steve the Snowman. Hey, icy. Then I filled up my super powerful water gun with hot tub water and blew a hole in his face. And then supercharged his nose off. And after that, I got out the giant rubber band ball, picked it up, and threw it at his head. And he was pretty wrecked. Here's me pretending I'm a snowman, and then the rubber band ball going past and being on him and throwing it at his back. But none of it worked, so I threw this thing at him and then jumped into him. But he was too solid. Let me know what else I should try. So one day someone commented telling me to microwave my aluminum foil ball, but first I'm going to do some other comments, including making it smoother and making this basket. This was actually my idea. And, oh look, I made it, haha. And then I sanded it down to make it smoother, which didn't really work, but it gave me this little ball. And then it was time to put it in the microwave. Don't try this at home. I took the plate out, put it in, turned it on for 60 seconds, and waited. So one day I went to Walmart and got a bunch of cardboard to make one of those cardboard tunnel slides on my stairs like I've seen before, and tape, and then left, went home and started building it. I taped the first box down at the top and was adding glow sticks all along on the way down. I then taped the second box to the top one and repeated this process for a long time until eventually I was done. The slide was looking pretty cool. I threw some pillows down to break my fall and went down it. And the first one was kind of anticlimactic, but my brother went down pretty fast and almost hurt himself. And on his next go, he basically destroyed the slide. So I had to remove this piece and put down a new flooring that made it actually faster. Here's a POV of me sliding down. And here's my final go. So I'm now to part 25 of this giant rubber band ball, and everyone just wants more and more and more. So I ordered these new rubber bands on Amazon, and they were way too small. So I got sad, and then I went to Walmart and bought a bunch of colored rubber bands and then went home. Then I, dumped them out into a pile and started placing them, which took longer than usual for some reason. But I finished, then took a break and came back later to place these other colored rubber bands I ordered. I placed that entire pile, and the ball kind of looks like Spider-Man now. And weighs 57 pounds. I took it downstairs and outside, then threw it and sat on it, and it's also way bigger than my head, and I can stand on it. So, if you want me to keep going. So one day someone commented to use my waterproof spray on a cardboard boat. So I found this cardboard box and taped it up on all sides to seal it. Then I cut out a hole for me to sit in, and then taped that. And then I started spraying all the waterproofing stuff. I sprayed it all around and on every single side until it was done, and then I let it sit overnight and came back the next day, put it in my brother's truck, and took it on down to the creek. And when I put the box in the water, it was still dry. So I set it down, got in, and started rowing. And it was completely working. I went out under the bridge, and then further, and then just chilled for a second, and kept on rowing. This was probably one of the best cardboard boats I've ever made, and I just kept on rowing forever. So one day I decided to take my giant water balloon and throw my rubber band ball on it to see if it would break it. I set it down in the yard, tied the zip tie and hose around it, and then let it fill up until it was all the way full. Then I took the hose out, sealed it again, and put the rubber band ball on it. And it just kind of rolled off at first, so I dropped it on it, and it stood up. So I threw it on it, and it busted. Here's a slow-mo. Wow. Yeah, that's a lot of damage. Let me know any other ideas you have. So one day I got a comment that said to fill my hamster ball with Orbeez in water. So I dumped a bunch of Orbeez in, zipped it up, and then let it air up. And once it was aired up, I added some water until it was done. Then I set it in this spot and let it set overnight and came back the next day and it looked like this. I deflated it and then messed with the Orbeez. And I'd never really even touched Orbeez, so it was pretty cool. I then got in all the way, which was really hot because it sat in the sun all day. And then just messed around with the Orbeez until it was all the way filled up. And then I walked around in it and then shaked all around in it like this. And then splashed them all. And then did a snow angel. I also went out on the road, ran for a bit, then got hot and tired and got out. Let me know what else I should do in it. So one day I decided to fix some of the damage on this car with life hacks I saw on the internet, starting with toothpaste to fix these scratches, which didn't end up working. So then we just moved on to the wheels using this black tire shine, and then tried to repair this crack on the windshield, and the shaving cream or toothpaste didn't really work. So then I just washed the entire car and really tried to actually detail it. I used the Stellar General leather cleaner on the cloth seats, and it looked really great. And then vacuumed the entire thing, and used this plunger to get the dents out, but it actually got this dent out of the roof. So one day while scootering, I dropped my laptop and then dropped it again on accident, totally on accident. And I had to fix it, so I looked up on the internet and got some toothpaste and some lemons to repair the crack. I've dumped the toothpaste out, started brushing it really hard, and I brushed it for quite a while and realized it wasn't going to do anything. Yeah, so then I tried to fix this plate and bam, it was bigger and better. And then I broke it. But then I tried the lemon juice on the laptop, and that didn't really work either. So then I just got sad. So I'm in a rubber band ball part 66, and the ball is huge. Look at me behind it. You can't even see me. And I put it on the scale, and it weighs 630 pounds. But we're going to get it even bigger and keep on adding bands. And my friend Brennan and I began placing bands for a very long time. And a lot of people say it looks like an egg now and not a ball, but it's very hard to keep it round because it's so big. And we try our best. And after we finished with the pile, I messed around with it, tried to throw balls on it, and then dunked with it. And I compared it next to this tiny rubber band ball and my head, then fell off of it, and took it back on the scale to weigh it in at 655 pounds. So, if I should keep on going. So one day it was really windy, so I took this giant 6-foot water balloon and I tried to fill it up with air. I got my air pump out, filled it all the way up until it was pretty big. Then I stopped, zip-tied it, tied a string around it, and ran around with it. It was pretty massive. I spun it around, threw it. It didn't pop. I kicked it, still didn't pop. And then I threw it up in the air, caught it, and we were best friends. I ran around, put it in my brother's truck, tried to shoot a basket with it, and then I bopped it with my head and bopped it a little too far and it popped. I was sad. So one day someone commented to drop my rubber band ball from somewhere high, and I don't live anywhere where I can really do that because it weighs 65 pounds and could hurt someone. So I took it to this abandoned race car track, took it to the second story, and dropped it. And it bounced and then just rolled into the ground. And I was like, I got to do something else. So I went down to this pipe and I'm like, can I put it in there? So I looked and it just gradually got smaller. So my ball would have got stuck. Glad I didn't do that. But I just ended up throwing it off and it bounced off into the fence. And it got this mark on it. Oh well, let me know what else I should do with my rubber band ball. So I'm now to part 26 of making this giant rubber band ball, and I'm going to keep on going. I ordered these bigger rubber bands on Amazon, and they weren't as small as the last ones, but they were still really hard to stretch around the ball. And I dumped them all out into a pile and placed it. And it was harder to place than any other pile I've ever placed. And it was exhausting, so I left and came back the next day to place 2 more packs of them. And I placed that pile, and it now weighs 61 pounds. I took it downstairs and compared it to this ball, then threw it, and then stood on it, kinda. More like sat on it. Anyway, like if you want me to keep on. I saw this TikTok of this guy singing, drinking cranberry juice, and riding a skateboard down the road, and I was like, that looks fun, I want to try. So I went to Walmart, got a skateboard, some cranberry juice, and then I went home. I drank some of the juice, and then tried to skateboard, but failed because I guess I suck at it. So I got a ripstick instead, and took off down the road and made the TikTok. Someone commented to put Flex Seal on the Crown Royale bottle and then see if it broke. So I sprayed Flex Seal on it, gave it a good coat, then came back later and gave it another coat. And then came back later and gave it one last coat. And then it was time to drop it. I took it to the cul-de-sac and dropped it from waist high and it was fine. So then I threw it up in the air and it cracked a little bit. But the Flex Seal kept all the glass together, which was cool. Let me know what else I should do. So one day I got a Crown Royale bottle to see if it was really indestructible. I dropped it from waist high and it was fine. So then I gave it a little toss and it shattered. Here's the slow-mo. Yeah, I was a little confused. I guess TikTok lied to me, so I walked away sad. So one day someone commented to make another cardboard boat, but this time use Flex Seal. So I used the same broken one, thinking the Flex Seal would just fix it. I sprayed the whole thing, gave it a coat on this side, and then that side. And when it was done, I let it dry and came back the next day. I then put it in my brother's truck and I took it on down to the creek. I put it in the water, got in, and started to row. I rowed all the way out through under the bridge, and it was pretty cool. I was just chilling, and eventually water started to leak in, so I tried to get out and fell. And then I drug it home. One day on part 53 of my giant rubber band ball series, I thought it was like any other rubber band ball video, placing a bunch of bands, but the clouds began to move in. After a while of placing rubber bands, it began to pour, and the rain just kept coming down harder and harder, so I got the beanbag to safety and then had to come back for the rubber band ball. Pushed that over 300-pound rubber band ball through the rain and into the garage, and then went back, making 2 trips to get all the rubber bands to place it in the garage. I shut the garage door, dried off the rubber band ball, and we got to work placing all the rest of the bands until we were eventually done. And the ball now should weigh like 347 pounds. Like if I should keep on going. One day I took an air mattress and a bunch of cardboard and decided to make a cardboard air mattress type boat. And my goal was to make it to where you couldn't see any of the air mattress, so it just looked like a complete cardboard boat. I got it completely finished and it looked pretty cool. I took it out to the lake, then I jumped on and paddled my way out. And it was working. I was smooth sailing, then I got blown into the trees, but eventually pushed my way out and made my way around the dock, thinking I was going to dock it, but ended up just going all the way around and then headed for these rocks, where I parked the boat for a little while, got off, and then kept going. And I went all the way around this little peninsula and went to shore. Let me know what else I should make. One day I decided to see if I could make foam board into a boat that would float me down the creek. This is going to be my first part to a series where I test if random objects or materials will make a boat. I had the boat made and then I took it down to the creek, put it in the water and got in. And at first I didn't think it was going very well. Then I put a hole in it and had to move it to deeper water. So then I tested it again and completely ruined the boat. Look at it. So then I ran off sad, but comment any other boat ideas you want me to make. So I'm now all the way to rubber band ball part 50, which is literally insane. So I'm just going to place another pile and see how heavy I can get it. Right now it's at like 260 pounds. We placed for a long time, which was getting kind of exhausting. And be sure to comment any ideas you have for this rubber band ball now, because it's getting pretty heavy to do anything with. But we finished and we weighed it in at 287 pounds. The camera just doesn't do it justice. And then it fell on me and I exaggerated the fall, but then it actually hurt my foot. Like if you want me to keep going. So one day after making 2 giant airplanes that could kind of fly, but they didn't fly very good on the windy day, so I took them back out on a less windy day and tried again. And the first one was just a total fail. It fell off the cliff and into the water. So I tried to throw the second plane and it did a little bit better, but still kind of had an angle down. But the second flight of the second plane did pretty good. And the second flight of the first plane did pretty bad again and off into the trees. So then I just jumped into the water out of failure. So one day someone commented to run over my brother with this giant hamster ball, but I'm actually going to let him run me over. First I messed around in it, then got out and jumped on.